We are stepping back and since these multiple launches, reevaluating what U.S.'s approach is going to be. I can tell you we're not ruling anything out, and we are considering every option that's on the table.
U.S. Ambassador to the UN, Nikki Haley, warning that nothing is off the table when it comes to the Trump administration's response to North Korea after that country test-fired 4 ballistic missiles into the Sea of Japan on Monday. Dictator Kim Jong-un announced in January that his regime is in the, quote, final stage of developing a nuclear-capable missile that could reach parts of the United States. Joining me now from Toronto is Gordon Chang. He's the author of Nuclear Showdown: North Korea Takes on the World. So, Gordon, let's go right to your book's title, Nuclear Showdown. What would a nuclear showdown with North Korea look like?
It would be extremely ugly. North Korea has somewhere between 16 and 20 warheads. And also, we've got to remember that North Korea has a formal military ally, China. You know, the last time there was a general war on the Korean Peninsula, China came in on North Korea's side, and it could very well do so this time as well, because Chinese leader Xi Jinping views the U.S. as China's strategic adversary. Okay,
we'll talk more about China in a moment, but specifically on a nuclear showdown, they claim that their missiles are going to be nuclear capable soon. Do you believe them?
Yes. They already have 3 missiles that can probably hit the lower 48 states, the Taepodong-2, the KN-08, and the KN-14. Now, they haven't been adequately tested, but they're based on proven technologies. Within 4 years, maybe 5 at the outside, they'll be able to mate a warhead to those long-range launchers, and they will be able to hold us at ransom.
Well, what about our anti-missile capability? Could we shoot them down before they get here?
Well, we have interceptors in both Alaska and California, but they're pretty rudimentary. They have about a 56% failure rate under perfect conditions. So the answer is that probably North Korea will be able to land a nuke in the United States if it chooses to do so.
Okay, now here's the big question. What do we do? We're not going to wait until they have that capability and put the nuke on a missile. We're going to take them out or take out their capability before that happens. Can we, and how could we?
Well, we could do that because we have conventional capabilities. We've got a nuclear arsenal that is quite large. But we're not going to do that because any sort of military action risks a general conventional war on the Korean Peninsula. We've got to remember that about half of South Korea's 50 million people are in the Seoul area, about 35 miles from the demilitarized zone that separates the 2 Koreas. So the military option is absolutely the last thing. There are a number of things that we can do, David. You know, we've tried almost every approach over the last 2 decades, and they've failed. But the one thing we haven't tried is to impose costs on China for its support for North Korea's ballistic missile program, nuclear weapons program, and other illicit commerce.
Well, but you're hearing more stories that China, even though China is so key for North Korea, they're losing some of their influence with North Korea, and North Korea is going rogue. Is that true?
Well, to a certain extent, but we've got to remember that China supports North Korea not because the North Koreans are friendly, but because the North Koreans accomplish some very important strategic objectives for China in the short term of keeping us off balance and giving us an incentive to cooperate with China on other things. So although the relations are indeed much strained than they have been in previous years, I'm not so sure that China's going to cut off its support for North Korea.
Now, there's another element here that just happened this week that complicates things. The South Korean president was kicked out of office. She was involved in some corruption. They had an impeachment, and they got rid of her. How does that complicate the whole scenario?
Well, there's got to be an election within 60 days, probably May 9th, and the polls show that the so-called progressives or the leftists are going to win, and that could change every calculus in North Asia and shift the balance of power in favor of North Korea and China. But we've got to remember that South Korean electorate is very volatile. They can change their minds on basically a dime. That happened in 2002. So I think that, you know, we very well may see, because Kim Jong-un and China may create provocations that change the views of the South Korean electorate at the last moment.
Well, would that change our military or our potential military approach? I understand that that Seoul, the capital of South Korea, is right next to the DMZ, the border there with North Korea, but we just can't allow, if China doesn't have sufficient influence to stop them from using one of these nukes, and it may not just be on a missile, by the way, they may sell it to a terrorist group or something like that as well.
Yeah, well, clearly. Or they could smuggle one in, assemble it in New York City, and set it off. Or they could put it on a cargo ship. There's so many ways North Korea can deliver a nuclear weapon to the American homeland. But, you know, with Seoul, if it changes sides, and it could very well do so, you know, that really restricts what we can do on the Korean Peninsula, both from a diplomatic point of view and from a military one as well.
A lot of danger there. Gordon Chang, author, Nuclear Showdown, North Korea's Take on the World. Thank you very much, Gordon. Good to see you. Good to have you on.